The Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And coming up at the top of the hour, ESPN Summer League coverage gets underway. Jorge Sedano is going to be on the call with our buddy Mark Kestisher as well. Great crew calling the early games, and then the Victor Wembayama debut at 9. And George with us now from Las Vegas. George, welcome to the show, man. Appreciate your time.
Hey, buddy. Good to talk to you again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you guys have the 5 and the 7 o'clock game. Wembayama tips at 9. How do you expect the atmosphere to be kind of early on, Summer League kicking off, and then to build throughout the day with this kind of almost unprecedented debut looming later tonight?
Well, usually those first games, there's a decent crowd on the first day, even if it's like, again, a pair of teams that you don't expect to have any real star power in regards to the young players. So we've got Denver and Milwaukee. That's our first game today. So we'll have a decent crowd, I'm sure. It'll probably be maybe about 40 to 50% capacity. But then by the second game, when you're talking about Scoot Henderson and the Blazers against one of the Thompson twins and the Rockets, and the Rockets have a lot of young players that are going to be playing in Summer League, even some of the guys who played on the big club, I think that will start to pack the place. And you'll start to see almost full capacity and then complete sellout, standing room for most people in there who don't have seats. There's going to be some standing room areas, and it's going to be over 19,000 for Victor Wembayama, which will be nuts when Mark Jones, Doris Burke, and Cass take the microphones and the headsets from us.
Yeah, I mean, it is, for those that haven't been out there, and I haven't been out there in a long time, like the crowds get pretty rowdy. Like it's a good time. People come out. It's something, especially, when I was out there, it was like 2014, 2015, the Lakers weren't any good. So like Lakers fans were super pumped because it was like, hey, we might win something. And they make the short drive. Do you expect this to be, though, like fans of certain teams? Is it going to be like Spurs fans being like, we got to go see Wembayama? Like what kind of, obviously it's going to be a full crowd, but what kind of crowd and what kind of energy amongst NBA people are you already experiencing out there?
Well, I think the energy in this place is always great in general, because to your point, I think that fans, based on the expectations of their teams, will show up in droves based on, well, hey, we've got this young star I want to see, so I'm going to make the trek out to Las Vegas. Honestly, of all the stuff on the NBA calendar, this to me is one of the most fun and unique events, because it's really the only event where everyone, and I mean everyone in regards to the team representation, right? The front offices are all here. It's easy to just run into players, and they have scheduled events with fans, with players in the arena, to have autograph sessions and things of that nature. It really is as big a fan fest beyond the games as anything. So it's, to me, the most fun thing that the NBA does on their calendar each and every year. But to answer your question specifically, the Laker fans are always going to be here because it's a quick trek and there's so many of them.
Right.
The Warriors fans have been good in regards to getting here. Last year we had a ton of Knicks fans here. And I remember because I called the game on play-by-play where Richard Jefferson, our guy, was a referee for a quarter. Yeah. So there's always some sort of fun event going on, but there's always a good subset of fans of different teams kind of showing up, particularly based on who their stars are going to be here while they're playing. So I'm guessing a lot of Rockets fans. There'll be a decent amount of Blazers fans, and certainly Lakers, Warriors. But San Antonio, I would imagine, will be well represented for sure at Summer League.
Jorge Sedano, ESPN, will be on the sidelines on the call today for the first 2 games of ESPN Summer League coverage from Las Vegas. And George, I 100% agree with you. It is such a cool event, but it's such a trick. And I was out in Vegas actually last week. How did we convince everyone to go to Vegas in July? What are we doing? Why can't we got to can we do it Toronto in July?
Yeah, I don't think you'll get people going to Toronto in July.
But then you won't melt.
Yeah, no, I get it. But I just think it's easy because the NBA calendar has, especially going back to the days of the Redeem team, right, in 2008,
right,
they meet here in the summer to get ready. For example, the World Cup of basketball is this year. And this is where it all happens in regards to training, exhibition games, and things of that nature. So the NBA has kind of made Vegas its second hub in a lot of ways, right? Even indirectly in a lot of cases. So that's just how it ended up working out. And Warren Legary, who put this all together, Warren Legary, for those that don't know that name, he's like one of the super agents for coaches. And he's a Vegas guy, and he set this thing up many, many years ago. And a lot of the Team USA stuff he set up. So I think that's just kind of how it all worked itself out. It started with the Team USA stuff, and then really it took Summer League to a completely different level after that.
Yeah, no doubt. And this year, it will not only USA Basketball, not only Summer League, WNBA All-Stars next week. So compounding out there.
Next
so
weekend.
entire basketball world in Vegas. And yet I was there last week. So what was I doing? Jorge Sedano with us from ESPN here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Don't forget, you can also watch us streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Real quick before we get back to what you'll see tonight on the floor, I'd be remiss to not ask you about what you thought of what the Wizards did this offseason. Obviously, you have the massive deals to send out Beal and Porzingis, but also, George, they draft one of the most intriguing guys in the entire draft, and one of the most intriguing guys, I think, for a lot of folks at Summer League, in Bilal Coulibaly. What have you made of kind of step one of the Wizards rebuild post-Beal era here?
Well, I like the fact that Michael Winger just came in there and basically stripped it all down, right? Because that's what you have to do if you're going to do this thing. And you have to accumulate picks. And I know people are saying, well, we don't know what some of those future picks are going to be. And I would say you would say that almost basically in any sport. You're just buying lottery tickets and trying to see if you can find some winners in those lottery tickets. So I like that. They needed to peel the Band-Aid off with the Bradley Beal stuff. And Porzingis, to me, was always just kind of a placeholder. I don't love him as a player. I think he obviously still has a unique skill set, but I don't even know why Boston brought him in. Like, I just don't like what Boston's doing, period. But back to the Wizards, yeah, I just think that you got to start from the ground up. So Coulibaly, to me, interesting prospect. Don't know a ton about him, but the people that I know that know way more about the international players than I do, they like his skill set. They like him as a prospect, and they think he can build into being a real contributor on a winning type of team because of the skill set. But that's all I know about him. But just the overall premise of tearing it all down and rebuilding it, to me, needed to be done probably shortly after John Wall's departure, if we're being honest.
Sure.
And the fact that they finally got around to it is good. And Michael Winger, people don't realize, well, the Clippers, right, they went out and got Kawhi and Paul George and all these veterans, and they make all these deals. And yeah, he's been part of that. But people don't realize that 2 seasons ago, when the Clippers lost Paul George and Kawhi for the entire season, basically, they were still a 42-40 team with a bunch of young guys that Michael Winger mostly drafted or found, right, in the undrafted bin, let's call it.
Right.
And so he's certainly capable of building a team from the ground up with young players and then trying to decipher which one of these young players are building blocks and pillars of a potential organization and franchise, et cetera. But he's going to have a couple of years where that's going to take place. And, the Kuzma signing is fine. The Jordan Poole trade is fine. You need guys that are going to be veterans, and they're still young in a lot of ways, obviously, those two. And you need guys to put the ball in the basket, too. So there's a salary floor. There's all that stuff. So they had to make decisions on who they thought they were going to bring in. And I think that the team's not going to be very good this year, but I do think that the future looks better now because at least there's a consistent message and a path to where they want to get.
So for those that don't know, in my audience, George, on top of his national work with ESPN, hosts on 710 ESPN LA, which, by the way, when you're out, a lot of times Clinton Yates, of course, in for you, who joins us at the top of the hour. I didn't realize that I did that today, but here we are. But did you get to know, being that you're based out there and have such strong NBA ties, did you know Winger at all? And what can you tell us about Winger that we might not already know?
Not a ton. Lawrence Frank is kind of the face of the front office there in LA with the Clippers. So dealt way more with Lawrence Frank. I mean, just a quick, acknowledgement of Michael Winger at times. But I did talk to enough people there regularly to know what everybody's job description was there. And he was very much the guy that helped them in his role to find those young talent, right? And also an incredible capologist. Right. I think that's something that is on his resume that he understands the cap in a way that very few in the league, I think, understand it, which in today's NBA, you have to be able to do. There are a couple of guys that these names may not resonate with your fans that are in that category. Andy Ellisberg, the Miami Heat, is kind of one of those guys.
Yes.
So I think that he's one of the guys that most teams look at and say he's the premier guy when it comes to kind of the machinations of the cap. And Winger, much younger than Andy, is in that class with Ellisberg. So I think you got a guy that understands talent, understands the big picture, and understands the salary cap, and is one of the best at that part of it. So that's the type of guy you got in Washington now.
No doubt. All right, last thing real quick. George Sedano with us on the way out. You got Nuggets, Bucks, and then you got Blazers, Rockets tonight. Outside of Scoot Henderson, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, I want to see obviously the Thompson twins, right? I want to see them play while they're here because while I've done a lot of G League games over my career, and I saw Scoot play a couple of times this year, both in person and on television. I didn't really see much of the Thompson twins in Overtime Elite other than watching them on YouTube occasionally. So now my colleague Israel Gutierrez at ESPN and my colleague Mark Spears at ESPN have done a lot of reporting on those two young men, and they come back with rave reviews about those two guys. But I've yet to see them play live, so I want to see those guys play. And ultimately, I want to see, and this is just kind of an overarching thing at Summer League, the second-year guys that come back.
Right.
They're, to me, if you're a second-year guy coming back to Summer League and you're not basically dominating and putting up big numbers, I think that's a red flag historically. So I'd like to see what those second-year guys that come here do on each particular team. So that's always something I keep an eye out for.
For sure. We're on big-time Johnny Davis watch on that front here in Washington. George Sedano, 5 o'clock Eastern, the coverage begins. Mark Kessinger, Seth Greenberg in the booth as well. George, always great to chat, man. I don't know why we haven't had you on the show before. That is a huge error by me, but we're happy to have you again if you're willing to come back.
Craig, anytime, buddy. Good to talk to you again.
You as well. Thanks, man. George Sedano, everybody, with us here on The Hoffman Show.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's The Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.